A country of over 1 billion people caught in a global pandemic.
देश आज एक महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय करने जा रहा है। आज रात 12 बजे से घरों से बाहर निकलने पर पूरी तरह पाबंदी लगाई जा रही है। संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है।
Worst hit states, Maharashtra, total cases 4,060.
A virus that's thrown the world's biggest democracy into quiet uncertainty.
It's a deadlier virus and it kills the target before it gets killed.
A virus that's brought the 5th largest economy to a complete standstill.
We do not know when the peak is going to hit in this country, what the peak is going to be. Remember, this is India, 137 crores population.
We are dealing with a disease for which we have no treatment and no cure.
With hospitals overwhelmed, India's frontline workers take charge. Witness the battle against the world's deadliest contagion.
We want ultimately to not only flatten but to reverse this graph.
The world looks to Indian scientists for a potential breakthrough.
The pharmaceutical industry there will be able to produce not just for India, but also for the entire world.
India battling the pandemic with one single goal: saving lives. Wuhan, central China's most populous city, with over 11 million people. Wuhan is part of China's growth story. A busy city that's always on the move. But change is coming.
In the Chinese city of Wuhan, health authorities are still working to identify the virus.
The city's hospitals are inundated with pneumonia cases. A mysterious virus is attacking the body, causing respiratory systems to collapse. People are dying. Wuhan's universities are home to a large number of Indian students. News of this virus is worrying them. Salma, a medical student, is desperate to get away.
Yeah, I said my parents the virus was spreading very fast. The city will lock down soon, I guess. So they were watching news and also they know the situation. They said me to come back immediately.
Salma and a few students flee Wuhan, booking a last-minute flight to Kolkata in eastern India. She then goes south, taking a domestic flight to Kochi before driving to Thrissur in Kerala to reach the safety of home. Salma has escaped Wuhan in the nick of time. China imposes an unprecedented lockdown, sealing the city to contain the virus. The fatalities are rising. Official figures say over 570 infected and 17 dead. India launches an evacuation mission, airlifting its citizens from the epicenter of the virus.
A formal request has been made to operate 2 aircrafts to China to bring back the Indian nationals.
The Indo-Tibetan Border Police is given a tight deadline to prepare quarantine facilities for the Wuhan evacuees.
It was a very short notice, but it was a challenge before the nation. Capacities and capability of the nation was under test.
Overnight, barracks are converted into quarantine halls. Systems set to ensure the virus will be contained and isolated here and not spread across the country.
We deployed large number of officers. We took help of good number of medical officers, and logistic equipment was total. Furnishing was done, and all facilities were created in a very short time because it was urgent need before all of us.
Four days after her return, Salma is feeling unwell.
I had sore throat and dry cough. I was very scared because I was coming from a very contagious place. So I was worried about my parents and the people who travel with me. I informed the health inspector in my area. Doctor from Thrissur District Hospital called me and they sent ambulance to my home there and we went to hospital.
The hospital is quick to respond. Blood samples and a swab from her mouth are swiftly dispatched to the National Institute of Virology, around 1200 kilometers away in Pune, Western India.
It arrived on 29th of January in the morning. We set up the real-time PCR, by which time we had specific primers for the SARS coronavirus 2. We set it up, and as a matter of abundant caution and in terms of quality control, we had 2 labs doing the same test. They ran samples in a blinded fashion.
The virus is crossing borders. In China, more than 100 people are dead and over 4,500 infected. 14 countries, including Japan, Korea, Australia, Italy, and the United States have reported infections. At the National Institute of Virology, Dr. Atanu Basu leads the team investigating Salma's sample. The test results are positive.
Actually, this virus, known as a coronavirus, has a very typical appearance under the electron microscope. It's usually around 70 to 100 nanometer circular virus, and it has a very distinct fringe, which is called an outer layer or corona. It is very much like the sun's corona. The genome of the virus is very different from any other viruses of the RNA family.
We have gone on to isolate the virus. The virus we got had a 99.98% similarity to the Wuhan strain. I made a call to the chief of ECD and announced that National Institute of Virology has its first case of SARS-CoV-2.
Within days, 2 more students test positive in Kerala. The deadly virus has breached India's borders.
Well, India's still at the beginning of this, but there's a lot of very important things that have been done. It's a huge challenge with India because you've got a gigantic country, you've got your urban centers with a lot of density, and so that drives the spread. You have people moving around. I'm always amazed at how much people travel around India. And so it's a big challenge, and yet people are stepping up, looking at how do we reduce the spread while trying not to reduce food availability, the equipment that people need.
The virus has now spread across 24 countries. China has over 14,000 positive cases. The death toll is also surging.
I think it's a rogue virus. And it really has some smart proteins which cause the body to overreact. It does get cleared by the body's defenses, but in that process, body gives up. All the energy of the body is used, and therefore it's a deadlier virus, and it kills the target before it gets killed.
It does mutate, and it does cause a challenge for the body defenses when it, again faces a different form of the virus. So those are the things which make it a very clever or very smart virus and a difficult to beat virus.
The virus is decoded and named. The new coronavirus is SARS-CoV-2 and the disease COVID-19.
Unlike the SARS or the MERS, the other viruses, which are the lower chest viruses, the COVID-19 too, the SARS-2 virus, it multiplies in the throat or in the nasal mucosa. Then you start shedding the virus from your throat, your nose, and then the virus gets into your lungs, the cells of the lungs, and it causes pneumonia. In that phase, patient may develop breathing difficulty and may need a hospital, oxygen, sometimes even a ventilator.
There is no treatment or vaccine to stop COVID-19. The only known preventive is to repeatedly wash hands and wear a mask. Testing vast numbers of people and isolating positive cases is the sole way to limit the disease from spreading. The virus has spread to 76 countries. China has over 80,000 cases. Korea, over 5,000. The virus is rampant in Italy and Iran. India has 6 positive cases, all with an international travel history. The government orders screening of all international passengers. Each traveler's temperature is taken before they are allowed to leave the airport. Rita Malhotra is on her way back home from Dubai.
So when I sat in the flight, तो मैंने मास्क लगाया हुआ था, but the next guy, he was coughing and he was not wearing any mask. वहीं से थोड़ा सा मुझे डर लगा.
Back home, she shares the details of her trip with Rakesh, her husband.
I don't know, I have not been to any shopping or any market. कहीं मैं गई नहीं हूँ. कहाँ से पिकअप कर रहा है मुझे नहीं पता. पता तब चला जब मेरे हस्बैंड को सिम्टम्स हुए. Then immediately I decide to have his corona test.
On the 27th night, when the results came in, I was COVID positive. For a moment, I thought this is going to be my end, being an age of 70. And most of the cases of people not being able to stand this, my immediate reaction was that I want to go to the hospital.
It's early March. Indian hospitals have still not geared up for the onslaught that is yet to come. This is just the beginning. And not all hospitals have put their COVID-19 protocols in place.
So I went to the hospital. They have not started because that was the first few cases. So all those hospitals were not prepared. So I took to one hospital, to the other hospital.
There was the same answer everywhere. We cannot take you directly, you have to be brought on an ambulance. So we came back home, I called the ambulance. I was very apprehensive whether I will be coming back or will not be coming back.
Unaware of what's yet to come, India is in a festive mode. Holi, the festival of colors, is being celebrated. Colors, crowds, and at this time, no concept of social distancing. The virus is wreaking havoc across the world. 114 countries affected. Over 118,000 people infected. And over 4,000 dead.
WHO has been assessing this outbreak around the clock, and we're deeply concerned both by the alarming levels of spread and severity. COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
The next day, India records its first COVID casualty. The victim, a 76-year-old man, had recently returned from Saudi Arabia. In just over a month, there is news of cases from across the country. Kerala in the south, Maharashtra in the west, New Delhi and Uttar Pradesh in the north, reporting record numbers. The Prime Minister's hand-picked COVID-19 task force takes charge, holding weekly teleconferences to manage the brewing crisis.
The Prime Minister had made a group of ministers. I was heading that team. We wanted the whole country to be prepared about it. So we had detailed health preparedness plans which we transmitted to all the states.
There is a race to establish testing facilities to bolster rapid detection of the disease.
When we started this testing thing, we had just about one lab in the country. That was the National Institute of Virology in Pune. And today we have, I think, over 500 labs doing the testing.
Helping the government scale up testing are a host of private companies, as well as international organizations.
The Gates Foundation has worked with the Indian government on health issues like introducing new vaccines over the last decade. And so when COVID came along, we stepped in and said, where are there gaps? We've been funding work on detection and isolation. We've been particularly active in UP and Bihar, where we've done health delivery in the past. We're also working with the Department of Personnel and Training to take their online training platform, which is fantastic, and now using that to give guidance to the frontline health workers. And iGOT, this platform, has had over 1 million people go through those courses.
The COVID-19 cases in India are rising. More than 150 positive cases. 3 deaths. Kerala and Maharashtra are the worst hit. The contagious virus is dominating the news. Prime Minister Modi imposes a day-long curfew.
22 मार्च रविवार को सुबह 7 बजे से रात 9 बजे तक सभी देशवासियों को जनता कर्फ्यू का पालन करना है। कोई भी नागरिक घरों से बाहर न निकले, अपने घरों में ही रहे।
To check the virus, India seals its borders, banning all international flights from landing. India now has 360 recorded COVID-19 cases. Barring 8 states, the virus has spread all across India. Western and southern states are badly hit. The Prime Minister declares a national health emergency and calls for a nationwide lockdown.
हिंदुस्तान को बचाने के लिए, हिंदुस्तान के हर नागरिक को बचाने के लिए, आपको बचाने के लिए, आपके परिवार को बचाने के लिए आज रात 12 बजे से घरों से बाहर निकलने पर पूरी तरह पाबंदी लगाई जा रही है। संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है।
The novel coronavirus, which originated in Wuhan, China, is sweeping across the world. Around 195 countries have been infected. Different nations trying different strategies to slow the pandemic. India implementing the world's biggest lockdown.
One reason why the lockdown came was to see that how transmission could be slowed down. Another reason was to flatten the curve. And of course, it gives India an opportunity that to gear up its health system, the number of hospital beds it's had, the number of ventilators it had, to be able to prepare for a surge.
With just 4 hours' notice, traffic in the second most populous country in the world comes to a standstill. Over 1 billion people withdraw into their homes.
In a country of 1.35 billion, to ask them for a total lockdown was really an exemplary and a very, very historic and very bold decision.
The police take charge across the country. Only essential services are allowed. The police are patrolling the streets, working long hours, despite the risk of exposure.
आप सभी से निवेदन है, अपनी दूरी बनाएं, अपने आप को सुरक्षित रखें, दूसरों की सुरक्षा का ध्यान रखें.
Assistant Commissioner Vijay Singh Tomar is reminding his team to follow the new safety protocols.
सब घर के अंदर हैं, even our families also. लेकिन हम भी बाहर हैं, हम अपना मास्क लगाए हुए हैं और डिस्टेंस भी मेंटेन कर रहे हैं. तो वी आर कीपिंग सेफ्टी फॉर आवर ऑल्सो, ताकि हम जब हम ही ठीक नहीं रहेंगे तो देश को कैसे हम रक्षा करेंगे देश की.
A day into the lockdown, and the police have a crisis to deal with. Thousands of people have been found holed up in one area of the capital city.
निजामुद्दीन मरकज़ में एक ही जगह से 3000 लोगों को निकाला गया और उसमें से बहुत बड़ी संख्या में 1000 से ज़्यादा लोग पॉजिटिव पाए गए. तो ये 2 चैलेंज दिल्ली के सामने बहुत बड़े आए.
The Tablighi Jamaat, an Islamic missionary organization, has held a jam-packed congregation here. A congregation which also had foreign delegates.
There was a communal overtone to the way the media covered, or a section of the media covered, the Tablighi Jamaat issue. We had some amount of information, and Tablighis were coming in from outside. They were holed up inside a limited or a contained space. It was bound to spread over there, and thus there was fear. So talking about it was not wrong. But were they the only ones? No, there were other religious congregations also that were happening. In fact, there were marriages happening that were being attended by politicians all over the country. I think the culpability of a Tablighi Jamaat was blown out of proportion.
There is an urgency to trace and test every person at the gathering.
I got up and started coordinating the things with my hospital staff, my nodal officer and other consultants. And it was a very strange kind of feeling I had, like, how did it happen? Why did it happen? Didn't they know we are facing so many problems and it can spread?
Hundreds of Tablighi Jamaat members have already left for their home states, raising alarm. They may have carried the virus with them.
In a few days, we saw that the whole infection, it had started traveling to each and every corner of the country, to every state.
The infections are multiplying across the country. Arpita Priyadarshini, an aeronautical engineer, to the rescue. Her company specializes in making high-end drones for defense, agriculture, and mining projects. Now, she is working with the municipality, adapting drones to help sanitize dense, high-risk areas.
इस एरिया में कुछ केसेस मिले हैं कोविड-19 के, तो यहाँ पे हम स्प्रेइंग करने आए हैं ड्रोन से कि हम एक दिन भी नहीं रुके हैं अभी तक। अभी जितने हमारे पास कुछ ना कुछ हॉटस्पॉट रोज मिल ही रहे हैं, आप देख रहे हो उसको, तो जितने मिलते जाते हैं वहाँ पे जा जाके हम डिसइंफेक्ट करते रहते हैं और ये रोज का चल रहा है, ये डेली प्लानिंग होती है।
The country is on high alert. The lockdown is total. Shops, businesses and factories have downed their shutters. The economy has ground to a complete halt. Thousands of desperate migrant laborers descend on bus stands in cities across the country. The sudden lockdown has left them jobless and homeless, and with no means of transport to go home.
So what shook us was this mass migration of people with children on their shoulders or pulling children along and with bag and baggage, bare feet, willing to walk 1,000 kilometers, empty stomach, without much water, etc. That is what hit us very badly because I think the government didn't anticipate it.
Schools and night shelters open up to provide temporary refuge. Dilip Taram, a factory worker, had recently moved to the capital, but the lockdown has derailed his life.
जैसे कि मेरे को पता चला, अपना सामान इकट्ठा कर लिया, कंधे पर रख दिया और निकल गया। फिर आते समय यहाँ बस अड्डे पे पहुँच गया। बस का फिर देखा कि बस चलेगी या नहीं, ट्रेन चलेगी या नहीं, तो सभी कोई बोलते थे कि ट्रेन नहीं चलने वाली है। तो फिर मैं एक पुलिस वाले से पूछा, तो मैं बोला यार रहने की कुछ जगह होंगी तो बता दो, तो फिर उसने ये रैन बसेरे की जगह दिया। अभी तो डेली फ़ोन आ ही रहे हैं कि घर आ जाओ करके, लेकिन जाने की सुविधा ही नहीं है।
Dilip is one of the countless migrants stuck in makeshift camps, waiting to go home.
मेरा छोटा सा बच्चा है, मेरे को परेशानी यही हुई कि मैं अभी आगे अपने बच्चों को देख पाऊंगा नहीं, अपनी फैमिली के पास जाऊँ पाऊंगा या नहीं, ये मेरे को घबराहट हो गई। और मैं लेकिन यही है कि अपनी फैमिली की डेली याद आती है। और लॉकडाउन खुलने से पहले तो यही है कि सब अपनी फैमिली के पास जाना चाहेगा।
The lockdown has shaken not just the country's economy, but also the migrants' confidence.
Some of these people, and we interviewed them, some of these people said that we're never going to come back to the big cities. This is a war that the government says it needs to win in this fight to revive the economy. You can't do it without the migrants coming back. If these people, if the migrants do not come back to work, there will be a huge problem, because then you cannot revive your economy. They are the foot soldiers for your economy to be revived.
Mumbai, India's financial capital. The city's officials are worried. Dharavi, Asia's largest slum, has its first positive case, sparking fears of a hotspot that may be hard to contain.
The area of Dharavi is hardly 2.5 square kilometer. In the 2.5 square kilometer area, almost 8 to 8.5 lakh people stay. And if you just peep into any of the house size of the house is hardly 10 by 15 feet. It's a very densely populated slum, and to practice a social distancing is a very tough task in that area.
Within weeks, Mumbai's worst fears come true. The infection is spreading rapidly through this densely populated slum. Over 100 policemen deployed at this containment zone. A dedicated quarantine facility is opened, but the numbers are overwhelming.
तो आइसोलेट करने के लिए अगर हम 15 लाख का जो स्लम है धारावी, वहाँ के लोगों को अगर उठा के बाहर रखना है तो कितने रख सकते हैं? फिर भी हमने 22,000 आज की तारीख में 22,000 इंस्टीट्यूशनल क्वारंटाइन किया है।
The city is preparing for the worst, building hospitals nearly overnight. States across the country fighting the virus. The Prime Minister rallies the nation in lockdown, reminding them they are not alone.
5 अप्रैल को रविवार को रात 9 बजे यदि घर की सभी लाइटें बंद करेंगे, चारों तरफ जब हर व्यक्ति एक एक दिया जलाएगा, तब प्रकाश की उस महाशक्ति का एहसास होगा जिसमें एक ही मकसद से हम सब लड़ रहे हैं, ये उजागर होगा।
The planned 3-week lockdown is approaching its end, but the virus is still on the move. The coronavirus has infected more than 6,000 people and killed 200 nationwide. After consultations, the government decides to take precautions and extends the lockdown. The world's largest democracy will remain closed for 19 more days.
सारे सुझावों को ध्यान में रखते हुए ये तय किया गया है कि भारत में लॉकडाउन को अब 3 मई तक और बढ़ाना पड़ेगा।
Lockdown principles, if you follow them sincerely and added to this the principle of following social distancing, these two together are the most potent social vaccine for the community. We have to continue with the strategy. So that was the reason why the first lockdown was followed with the second lockdown.
India, the world's second most populous country, under a rolling lockdown. For weeks, the streets have been deserted. Offices and shopping centers shut. Train stations and airports at a complete standstill. The numbers of people infected with COVID-19 are still alarming. Barring Antarctica, the virus has spread across all continents. Over 1.8 million people have been impacted worldwide. The death toll is soaring. Italy with over 20,000. Spain with over 17,000. And India over 300. Medical workers fighting the virus are at the highest risk. Dr. Shatrughan Panjwani is the first doctor to die due to COVID-19.
So it is no joke for doctors to handle this corona COVID-19 outbreak. They are not even bothered what they are eating, whether they are sleeping or not.
I think a far more alarming situation in the country is where some of the doctors are complaining that they don't have good quality PPE kits. They're not getting proper N95 masks. I mean, at a time when we are expressing gratitude, more than them being killed by the virus, I think they're being killed by apathy.
The hospitals are maintaining strict safety protocols in their COVID-19 wards.
Just imagine the plight of a person who is, walking into a infection-prone area, working in PPEs, fitting it out, holding on to his, discharging his body fluids for 6 hours, remaining there, not eating, not drinking, and then the fear of taking it home and infecting his family members in case he gets infected.
While doctors are dealing with endless lines of patients, the streets outside remain deserted. For over 5 weeks now, shops, restaurants, factories have remained shut, raising fears that many small businesses may not survive the lockdown.
What is the meaning of a revival of an economy? Demand should come back. But what has happened is consumer sentiment has been hit very badly. So people are not going to buy discretionary items because a lot of people have lost job, their work has gone, so the demand has gone.
The government announces a third lockdown, this time for 14 days. This one will see a partial opening of businesses in many states to slowly restart the economy. The limited opening does not generate work for the thousands of migrant laborers stuck in cities. In desperation, they take to the highways, braving the scorching summer, triggering India's biggest migration since independence.
I feel that the government has been struggling, and you can't entirely blame them in trying to balance this life versus livelihood.
Bollywood actor Sonu Sood turns into a real-life hero, spending his own resources to send thousands home.
मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जो पूरा सिस्टम था वो कहीं ना कहीं फेल हुआ है इनके लिए, क्योंकि अगर थोड़ी सी तरीके आसान होते तो शायद घर पहुंच जाते, क्योंकि जो घर जाने वाला है वो तो घर जाएगा ही जाएगा, चाहे वो पैदल जाए, चाहे ऑटो में बैठ के जाए या किसी ट्रक पे बैठ के जाए।
अरे हम लोग इधर फंसे हुए थे दो महीने से, कुछ काम धंधा है नहीं, तो उन्होंने हम लोग के लिए कुछ पैसे के बंदोबस्त किए हैं।
The actor personally seeing off relieved migrants on their homeward journey.
ये बस का इंतजाम करके दरभंगा भेजा है, मैं उसका तहे दिल से शुक्रगुजार हूँ।
The government too starts rolling out special trains to ferry thousands of stranded migrant laborers back to their village homes.
यहाँ पे बहुत दिक्कत थी रहने की, खाने की, तो इसलिए गांव जाने के लिए अच्छा ही है।
We have taken bold decisions like allowing the migrant workers to go back to their hometowns or their villages. We've also taken the bold decision of bringing back our own stranded Indians in number of countries.
The government launches the world's largest repatriation program. The Vande Bharat mission will see planes sent out to over 40 countries to evacuate more than 200,000 Indians stranded abroad. India has tried 40 days of a total nationwide lockdown. And now is trying a 14-day partial lockdown.
So what has Kerala done right, and what are the lessons that the state holds for the rest of the country?
Some states have successfully slowed the virus. Kerala, the southern state which reported the country's first COVID-19 case, has managed to flatten the curve.
Tracing, testing, quarantining and isolating and giving best treatment. From the airport, from the road, and if the patient is returning by water, the seaport and the railway station, everywhere our trained team will be there.
Volunteers man helplines giving out precise information and ensuring individualized care. The state's grassroots approach has worked. This centralized control room helping monitor hospitals across the state.
We want to save the lives of people. We are giving very good treatment in our hospitals. If anyone wants ventilator, we are giving it. If anyone wants other kind of special treatment, we have a medical board in each and every hospital, especially for corona, and they are individually, they are giving attention, individual attention and care to the people.
Kerala's success, built on the learnings of a previous crisis.
We traced all the contact of the Nipah affected persons, and a very good tracing mechanism, contact tracing mechanism was formed at that time.
Kerala's COVID care example, prioritizing empathy and responsiveness, a lesson for the rest of the country to follow. India is trying the lockdown strategy to deal with COVID-19. The country has seen 3 consecutive rolling lockdowns, a total of 54 days. The number of COVID-19 cases are still rising. 70,000 people infected. The government now easing the lockdown with an eye to opening the economy.
लॉकडाउन का चौथा चरण, लॉकडाउन 4, पूरी तरह नए रंग रूप वाला होगा, नए नियमों वाला होगा.
To help kickstart the country's frozen economy, a stimulus package is on offer.
ये पैकेज भारत की जीडीपी का करीब 10% है. इन सबके जरिए देश के विभिन्न वर्गों को, आर्थिक व्यवस्था की कड़ियों को 20 लाख करोड़ रुपए का संबल मिलेगा, सपोर्ट मिलेगा.
India hits a bitter milestone. Over 100,000 infections. India now among the top 12 countries to have a large number of positive cases.
My worry only was that, yes, the health system should be well prepared to be able to handle this surge. And I was familiarized with the kind of steps India was taking, even converting railway coaches, trying to use hotels, and trying to use stadiums, trying to see how they could augment the hospital beds, because India was also aware that, yes, the number of cases would go up.
The government's new COVID-19 plan, moving from a nationwide lockdown approach to localized containment.
We are very clear about the strategy in the country. We have these green, orange and red zones. We are now changing the classification, making it more containment zone specific. We want ultimately to not only flatten but to reverse this graph.
एक लेडी को कोरोना पॉजिटिव मिला है, तो हम सबको बैरिकेडिंग करनी है चारों तरफ. केवल एसेंशियल सर्विसेज वाले ही अंदर जाएंगे. वहाँ की एंट्री बड़ी रेस्ट्रिक्टेड होगी. कंटेनमेंट जोन के लिए तमाम स्टाफ इमीडिएटली पहुंचे.
चलो भैया चलो 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 जल्दी चलो. इस एरिया को कंटेनमेंट जोन बनाया गया है सो दैट बाकी जगह ये कंटेन रहे, डिजीज़ कोविड-19 कोरोना फैले ना. किसी को भी बाहर के व्यक्ति को इस कंटेनमेंट जोन में आने की मनाही है. पोस्टर्स लगा दी गए हैं, इन्फॉर्मेशन डिस्प्ले की जा रही है. साथ साथ में जो भी लोग आ रहे हैं उनको बताया जा रहा है. मेरे साथी सैनिटाइजेशन कराए, ये प्रोग्रेस करा रहे हैं. सैनिटाइजेशन चल रहा है.
Behind the scenes, the scientific community has been working round the clock in the war against the virus.
The Prime Minister's office has constituted a vaccine and R&D task force with Dr. Vinod Paul and the Principal Scientific Advisor as co-chairs. That has pushed in place many huge research programs so that we can understand the virus and the disease better in our context. So this has all been done in close interaction with multiple institutions in the country.
India has a lot of capacity there with the drug and vaccine companies that are huge suppliers to the entire world. You know, more vaccines are made in India than anywhere, starting with Serum Institute, that's the largest, but also BioE, Bharat, many others. They are doing work to help make a coronavirus vaccine, building on their great capacities that they've used for other diseases. And our foundation is a partner with the government, particularly with the Department of Biotechnology, the Indian Council of Medical Research, and the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, to provide advice and help about getting these tools going.
The world's largest vaccine manufacturer, Serum Institute of India, headquartered in Pune, Maharashtra. The laboratory here working to produce what could be the holy grail against the coronavirus.
This one is different because all the vaccines we have been making in the past for many, many years normally takes 5 to 6 years to develop a new vaccine. Here we're trying to condense that period in a year or 2 years, and that is the challenge.
If the trials succeed, the vaccine could be the answer the world has been waiting for.
Today, India has not been recognized as a vaccine manufacturing hub. In this crisis where people have been wondering where the vaccines will be produced, and now they're turning to India and realizing what our capabilities are in vaccine production. So that's what it'll mean to us and to India.
The world is closely looking at developments in this lab. A scientific breakthrough here holds the key to freeing the world from the coronavirus crisis.
India did join CEPI, which is a group working on a global basis to build vaccine platforms. So that was very smart. And so, I'm excited that the pharmaceutical industry there will be able to produce, not just for India, but also for the entire world, what we need to reduce the deaths and make sure we're immune, which is how we end the epidemic.
The 2-month-long lockdown in India has exceeded 100,000 with nearly. The rate of new infections is signs of slowing.
India has been battling the coronavirus since the beginning of the year. The country has tried 40 days of extreme nationwide lockdown and nearly a month of a relaxed lockdown.
Unlock 1, more and more business will start, okay? But the problem is the demand will not be there immediately. People are not investing at this point of time, and probably they'll not invest for quite some time, till demand picks up. You'll have to devise specific policies to see that, businesses continue to function. So unlocking the economy is important.
The COVID-19 map of the world is bleak. Over 6 million infected cases across the globe. India has nearly 200,000 cases. Over 5,300 people dead. However, more than 91,000 Indians have regained their health. The recovery rate of 48.19% is heartening.
We must be careful not to become relaxed, not to take it easy. The moment you take it easy, the second wave and more disasters can come. So let's be ready and look for options.
India has now seen its biggest jump yet in news.
The number of cases continue to rise, and the future still remains uncertain.
We do not know when the peak is going to hit in this country, what the peak is going to be. Remember, this is India, 137 crores. That is our population. So we do not know where the peak is. And we also don't know when are we going to flatten the curve, because you can only flatten the curve when you reach the peak.
People stepping out to resume old routines as they learn to live with the virus.
I think social distancing, mask, the hand hygiene, ventilations, they will become the new normal, they'll become the way of life. Maybe many of these things will be for good.
COVID-19 is here to stay in multiple ways, even after a vaccine. Unlike a human-only disease, such as smallpox, which can be eliminated by a vaccine completely, the vaccine will be constantly required, because this disease is hiding not only in humans, but will be hiding in bats and ready to come. by some other contact. So one can't rest.
India, with its distinct challenges, population, poverty, and poor literacy, has faced the virus with sheer grit and innovative temperament.
India is doing a lot of research studies. They're trying to see how they reacted to this virus. What is it that they did was right? What is it that they could have done better? And I think if there is a second wave, they'll be well equipped to adopt the lessons of their own studies on how to deal with the virus.
First, we need good surveillance so that we catch it early, and that means great primary healthcare systems throughout the entire world. The second is to have a platform that lets us build the diagnostics very, very quickly, that lets us have a library of antiviral drugs and gets us antibodies very quickly. And finally, a way of making a vaccine rapidly and understanding the coordination. Strengthening the institutions for global cooperation, including WHO, will be very, very important. Making sure we prepare the health workers and we support them because they've done the really tough work here. That'll be important. I do think we'll come out of this with a preparedness so that we don't have to go through this again.
Coronavirus cases in India have crossed the 4 lakh mark. Cases in India have exceeded 100,000.
The virus is still out there, strong and invisible. We have bought ourselves some time. Our heroes fighting valiantly in hospitals, in laboratories, on the streets. Helping each other to overcome the tide. India joining the global network. The race is on to find the key to unlock the pandemic once and for all. This war has just begun.
30 groups which are working for development of vaccine